Camouflage has just dropped their newest update for the game, Batman Arkham Shadow, with this update having newly included challenge maps, along with a character viewer, and adding one of the most breathtaking quality features for the game, New Game Plus. So we got a lot to cover in today's video, so let's just jump right into it. Now, for starters, I want to take a look at the newly included challenge maps in the game, and I gotta say, they did a really good job on picking what challenge maps should be in the game. For example, we have the Disorder lines. Now, when I got to play in this Predator section in the game, it reminded me a lot of the Botanical Gardens from Arkham Asylum, just because of that green look to the room, and that it included a lot of similar things from the Botanical Gardens. Another thing that I like about the challenge map is that it can be pretty eerie at some points. Like, I could be up on a gargoyle, and out of nowhere, they see me in this dark greenish looking room. Especially when you're on ground level, it can be pretty unpredictable on where the enemies are. You could be a wall away from an enemy without even knowing. And I just want to point out one thing to you, that I'm pretty sure that the NPCs in this game got a huge upgrade. Like, I swear, I could be just hiding in plain sight, and bam, they start shooting at me if I were just in the open like that. Like, that's probably why I think this Predator room can be scary at times. So those are just my reasons on why I like this challenge map, but I would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. Now, moving on to Rumble on the Deck. Now, when I was actually guessing on what challenge maps would be featured in the upcoming update on my What to Expect video about Batman Arkham Shadow, one of the maps that I had guessed that were going to be in the game was Rumble on the Deck, and to no one's surprise, it was featured in the game. Now, I automatically saw this coming just because of how good and fun this Predator section was at the end of the game. Like, first of all, you're on a huge boat with tons of other ways on how you can take someone down, and second of all, the amount of enemies there are in this Predator section just made this section 10 times better. But what I actually think why they decided to add this map is just because it's the last Predator section of the game, and because of all the other things that I just said. But all I gotta say about this map, I'm really glad that Camouflage decided to put this Predator section as a challenge map. Now moving on to the last Predator challenge map on the game, Infinite Predator. Now, once again, I'd mentioned the specific challenge endless mode in my Batman Arkham Shadow update video on what to expect, and like last time, I also saw this coming. Now, if I'm just being honest, this actually might be my favorite challenge map in the game. Just because of the different map that we get to play in, it again reminds me about playing Batman Arkham Asylum in first person, and with it having that same greenish look just like it did in that other challenge map that I discussed. And then it can be pretty unpredictable on where enemies can be. Like, there's this maze that is actually included in the challenge map, and when going through it, I felt so creeped out by the fact that there could be an enemy just patrolling there as I'm just about to turn. But besides from the little things, I just also like having that experience of taking so many enemies out and getting that beautiful personal record after you eventually die. But besides from that, I would also love to hear what you guys have to say about this challenge map down below. Moving on to the combat challenge maps, we have Arkham's Finest. Now, this challenge map is revolved around Blackgate Prison just because of where it takes place, and the main enemies that you fight in this challenge are Tiger Guards. Now, when playing this challenge, it honestly was my favorite challenge map. Like, I definitely think that they could have gone with something else, but for what they had released, it wasn't that bad. I mean, the map itself isn't too big, nor is it too small. It reminded me more of a tiny combat section more than an actual challenge map. But the enemies that you do fight in this section, I think makes it more difficult and more fun. But everything else, besides from the little problems, I'd say that it's a well-put challenge map. Next up is Stowaway Brawl. Now, this has got to be my second favorite map, and you'll see why later. Like, the main reason why I like this map a lot is because of the amount of space there is. Like, when fighting, you never really get stuck between walls, and what's funny is that you can actually even run away from them. Like, I don't know why you do that, but let's just move on. And the second reason is how good the scenery is. Like, looking out into Gotham Harbor and seeing how good it looks in the nighttime is just a really cool thing to experience. But this is just a good insight on why I like this map. Like, when it comes to actually fighting on the boat, it's really well put together in terms of the enemies, to how large the challenge map is, and to how it looks. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say down below. And for the last combat challenge map, we have Infinite Combat. Now, for this last challenge map, it takes place yet again in a section of Blackgate Prison. The main enemies that you fight are, yep, you guessed it, Tiger Guards. Now, the only difference between the Predator Endless Challenge map versus this one, it has a different map, and it's not revolved around stealth-based combat. Now, when playing this, I was genuinely having a lot of fun. Just like with the Endless Predator Challenge map, it was so satisfying knocking out so many villains and getting that personal record just after dying. Like, I think just the main reason why this is my all-time favorite challenge map in Batman Arkham Shadow is just because of having endless amount of thugs come at you and try to stop you while you, the player, are just knocking so many of them out. So this is just my opinion about this challenge map, but I would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. Now moving on to the newly added character viewer. Now, if I'm just being completely honest, I was not expecting the character models to look this good versus what Arkham Shadow's models look like. There's just no competition. Now, I'm not saying that Arkham VR's character models look absolutely atrocious. Like, Arkham VR was released in 2016, so what they have shown to the public wasn't bad at all. But besides from that, when you are actually looking at the characters, it can definitely be scary at times. Like, when looking at Bolton up close, like, dang, this man is like 7 feet tall. Okay, maybe I'm like a teensy bit short, but I mean, it's not a huge difference. You guys obviously agree with me, right? But anyways, from the details on these models just look amazing. Even looking at all of the past characters that you fought and met in the story is just an unforgettable experience. And there's actually voice lines for these characters.
I am the reason criminals breathe easier when the sun rises.
Do be careful, Master Bruce.
Has this whole city lost its mind?
And the next thing that we're actually going to be talking about is actually involved with the character viewer. Moving on to the new lore that expands in the post-credits scene, after the rolling credits, we actually spawn as Bruce Wayne and are back at Strike's old apartment. And we are then instructed to knock on the door, and the one to answer the door is obviously not Strike because he was already killed, and it's not just some cop. It actually turns out to be...
It's you. I mean, I knew it'd be you, but not this you.
You guessed it, Dick Grayson. Now, let's be honest, we were kind of expecting the new lore to be about Dick Grayson, but we definitely didn't expect a fully fleshed out man-to-man talk with the man being Dick Grayson. Like, the fact that Camouflage is still adding new cutscenes and lore to the game really just shows us how much they care about Batman Arkham Shadow. And another interesting thing is that it turns out that Dick Grayson already knows who Batman is in this dialogue.
It's you. I mean, I knew it'd be you, but not this you.
Well, the other me doesn't knock.
Like, I mean, when he says those words, it clearly shows us that he knows who Batman is. And even in his own character bio, we can actually get some audio tapes. And let's just say he's most likely already out patrolling with Batman.
I learned to walk on a tightrope. I can handle a couple of rooftops. Relax. I'm used to working without a net.
Now moving on, after we talk with Dick Grayson, we can actually explore the apartment he once lived in. And we can actually find some audio tapes that were sent from Bruce Wayne.
Hey, you've reached Dick Grayson. Leave a message.
Hey kid, Bruce. Good talking to you the other day. And thanks for not hanging up on me. If I were in your shoes, not sure I would have been so gracious. Alfred's gonna reach out to you about next steps. We'll be in touch.
But for what I've seen in the post-credit scenes, I am not disappointed. And something else that they shown in the post-credit scenes is that Joe Chill, the man that killed Bruce Wayne's parents, instead of escaping and living a normal life, he instead decides to turn himself in, and the reason being is because, I quote, "That's where I belong." And along with Bolton, he is in the hospital recovering from his injuries, since he was just jumped by a bunch of rats. But that's really all I know, so after this, we take Dick Grayson's bag and head out of the apartment. But if I missed anything, make sure to comment that down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, moving on to the last thing we're going to be talking about, New Game Plus. Remember how I wasn't really sure on how they were going to make the no countering mechanic work in VR? Well, it turns out they actually decided to keep the counter icons in this mode. And honestly, that makes complete sense. Imagine trying to beat this game when the only thing you can see is what's directly in front of you. The reason the no counter mechanic worked in the previous Arkham games is because they were third person. You could see all of the enemies attacking you from every direction. Don't think that means this mode is going to be easy. Instead of removing the counter icons, they decided to buff up every enemy counter. Take the very first combat section, for example. Normally, you'd only face 2 thugs, but in New Game Plus, there are 2 additional enemies, and they come armed with weapons. And keep in mind, this is one of the most easiest fights in the entire game. Now, I'm not saying the beginning is suddenly super difficult, but it's definitely a step up. But as you progress though, combat situations get even tougher. Enemies have more health, more weapons, and show up in greater numbers. And we're not just talking about regular thugs. You're already dealing with shielded enemies, knife welders, and stun baton guys. Adds right at the start of the game. Now, when it comes to stealth, I was expecting a bigger challenge, maybe more thugs and better enemy awareness. But surprisingly, that wasn't the case. I could still take out the enemies pretty easily without being spotted. Now, Sure, this is the first stealth section, so maybe they didn't want to ramp things up too soon, but after seeing the difference in combat, it's a little odd that stealth remains unchanged. Okay, maybe it changed a teensy bit, like having to perform the motion of taking someone down one extra time, but that's really it. Other than that, it feels just as easy. That being said, I do expect the difficulty to increase as the story goes. But that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and comment down below if you want to see more videos like this or just Arkham content in general. But without further ado, I'll see you on the next one. Peace!
We'll kill you for this, Batman.